The good old days right there. Back-to-back titles with Miami, and no stranger to All-Star Game. 11 times been here at All-Star Weekend. Chris Bosh with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Let's start out with the Cavs here, this reloaded roster. How do you feel like they compare to your teams with LeBron with the Heat?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I think their athleticism has changed a lot, and just the enthusiasm. That's one of the main things that I've noticed since the trade. I mean, sometimes, yeah, like we've always been hearing, things don't work out, and that's okay. I mean, sometimes a team is not going to mesh, and when they don't mesh, you have to make certain moves. And, we're going to see if they'll be able to keep it up. I mean, it's only been 2 games, so it's a lot more basketball to play, and they're going to have to, really step up to the challenge.
Interesting question I have for you, Chris Bosh. You look at the trades that were made by Cleveland. One would argue everybody's got to do something because you got a super team out in Golden State.
Yeah.
Well, damn it, there was a super team before Golden State, and it was in Miami when 3 dudes descended upon South Beach back in 2010, 2011. How responsible do you feel for the culture that exists in the NBA today with everybody looking to get on a super team?
Well, things change. I don't think the super team is a new thing. You're as big of a fan of basketball as I am. I think Jordan and Pippen, those guys were talented enough by themselves, and then they get Ron Harper. They get a lot of other good pieces.
Rodman, the greatest defensive player in modern history.
You know what I mean? And even San Antonio, nobody gives them credit for being a super team, but they did it through the draft and everything. But Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, I mean, arguably the best international players of all time.
That's entirely different. Drafted is entirely different than free agent.
When players decide for themselves.
Well, I mean, 96.
I want to hear what he has to say. 96
Bulls, and yeah, I do. I think, if you want to make an imprint and a legacy on the game, you have to do things that aren't everybody is not going to agree with. And, at the end of the day, we wanted to win, and that's what it was about.
Chris, one thing that strikes me about the question Stephen A. just asked and your response, it's one thing when players are traded. Like, everyone prefers the GM doing it. It feels better. The players are kept in their place. But when they're traded, look what just happened in Cleveland. They were like, Isaiah, I didn't ask for this. Who said I was going to sacrifice these things? When you guys made the choice to do it, 20-10, perennially the best player on a perennial all-star team. You had to sacrifice a lot. You had to hear people all over TV and in media talking about what happened to Chris Bosh, 13-8. He's not good anymore because they wouldn't watch the games.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your decision to make those sacrifices and how hard it was and how tempting it was not to?
Well, first, you just come in with a sense of wanting to win. And you think in your mind, oh, man, it's going to be 22-12 in a championship. And instead, you get lesser numbers and a loss, and you get humbled. And that's what happened to me and the rest of the team. I think that was the best thing that happened to us, was losing that first finals, because it gave us a sense of what it's really about. We didn't really have the opportunity to gloat or anything, because we had to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, this wasn't working. What can I do to ensure that this team has a better chance of winning next year? And sometimes you have to play those games like, I have to be a better defender. It's not all about points and rebounds. It's not about assists. It's about the win column. And I think a lot of people, especially now, it's all about numbers.
Were you ever tempted to be selfish, to not make the sacrifices?
Of course. I mean, I felt, sometimes that is one of the main things. You try to prove people wrong sometimes, and that's where you kind of get caught up and you make mistakes. But, I'm fortunate for whatever reason. I didn't do those things. I just kind of stayed with it, had a great support system in my family and a great team that allowed me to come into my own.
I want you to talk about the transition and the transformation that has been made by LeBron James from this perspective. When y'all first arrived in Miami, D-Wade was the leader. D-Wade was on the record talking about how this team will never be what it's capable of being unless the best player in the world takes the lead. So he had to take a step back. LeBron had to take a step forward. Ever since LeBron has taken a step forward, 2 rings in Miami, now an additional ring in Cleveland. Can you talk about the evolution of LeBron James from when he arrived in Miami with y'all to what he is now and what you believe how you believe he should be looked at because of the evolution that has taken place?
Well, I think a lot of things, he's figured out a lot of things. You know, he was able to go from, like I said before, that point where you don't know how to get it done and then you do. And now it's all about sustaining it. And I mean, you know, you look at his production, you look at his physique, his body, and just the way he's going out there and competing every night, it's not stopping. I mean, I'm amazed, you know, truly, just what he's able to do. I mean, he's at that age where everybody's waiting on the decline, and he continues to go up. And just that alone, I think that puts him in the realm of greatest to ever do it, because just him being able to have his body sustain that wear and tear. He doesn't miss a lot of games, and he's going to the finals.